Hello, world. Welcome to WFHR's Rapids Report for this Monday, October 27th, 2025. Say a big thank you to our friends at Crockett Septic sponsoring the segment. Joining us right now, our good friend, Senator Patrick Testin. Good to see you, Pat.
James, great to be in studio.
Great to have you in studio, man. We don't get to do this very often, and we have a great connection, so we we really could hear you and have a good conversation here, and got a bunch of different things I want to talk about. Wanted to kick things off, just wrapping things up with the coolest thing in Wisconsin. That was a fun contest that they did. They do a great job with this every year.
Yeah, this is put on by WMC, and it's an opportunity to highlight some of the great manufacturers that we have all throughout the state of Wisconsin. We always try and nominate one or two from right here in the 24th Senate District, and I believe they just wrapped it up. And to be honest, James, I can't remember who actually won the final.
That's all right, because I had to double check myself. You were not alone on that one, but I did see that 1,000 Island Airboats earned the victory. A great local one, and a great opportunity to highlight some of our smaller businesses, oftentimes that people may not know about and everything. It's such a fun contest.
It really is, and it just goes to show just what great employers that we have throughout the entire state, and glad that some airboats won. I have never been on one, so maybe that will be an on the job for a future date.
Oh, yes, make a note of that one. Recently, you testified in front of the Assembly Committee on Health, Aging, and Long-Term Care on a bipartisan bill that is going to help our first responders better treat those suffering. Can we get into that a little bit and how that went?
Yeah, and I think we've discussed this in the past, but it was before the Assembly Health Committee, and stemmed from a very tragic story that happened right here in the Wisconsin Rapids area with the Miller family, where their young son had no idea he had a peanut allergy, and it was about roughly around this time last year, right around Thanksgiving, that he had purchased some peanut butter M&Ms and went into anaphylaxis shock and had no idea. And so by the time the first responders had arrived, it was too late. He was brain dead. The parents had to make a very difficult decision to pull the plug. And, they've been on a crusade ever since to ensure that all of our first responders have the ability and are trained to deliver epinephrine. And so I know Sheriff Becker, the police chiefs in Grand Rapids, Port Edwards, Nakusa, Wisconsin Rapids have all taken upon themselves to do this, which is a great starting point. But we want to make sure this goes statewide so we don't have another tragic case like this around the state of Wisconsin.
One of the things that I have appreciated working with you over the years, you are very good at the job. You're well-spoken. You do a great job answering things. I've never thrown you a curveball. You always knock them out. But it's also something else, and I hope the audience noticed it with that, the change in tone. You've been doing this job for a while, and there are certainly things that are going to be, get you this emotion or this emotion out. But so often a part of your job is talking to constituents and talking to families that have been through maybe the most horrible, hard thing that they've ever been through, and working with them through that, trying to find ways to make sure it doesn't happen again. How do you handle that at the end of the day? How do you take that all in?
I mean, it's tough, and there have certainly, and this is a prime example where you find yourself, it's basically an emotional gut punch, to be honest with you. When I was first contacted by Andrew's father, it was 2 days before Christmas of last year, and here he is, just lost his son about a month ago, and 2 days before Christmas, he gives me a call. I mean, how do you not act on something like that? And so I immediately reached out to Representative Scott Krug, and we had the conversation and said, you know what, let's run legislation. And what I find so incredibly inspiring in these tragic circumstances is that here's this grieving family who are taking time out of their schedules to come down to Madison to testify in front of state senators, state representatives, and to do it with such grace and such elegance and strength. That gives me the strength to power forward and carry their torch and their banner in their son's honor and legacy.
You know, it's interesting. I've talked to Sheriff Becker about this quite a bit, and other police officers and everything. I've talked to people, psychiatrists, about this, the job and the taxingness of the job. I don't think that we talk enough about it with politicians. And, I think it's a very noteworthy thing as far as what a good or a bad politician, that's everybody has got their own definitions of that. But for me, that is a big part of it. And that empathy, that understanding, that being able to connect to your constituents, it's vital in what you do. And I would imagine the longer you do it, the easier it is to get numb to a job like that. Again, talk to officers, psychiatrists about this. I admire so much those that still feel. And as silly as that might sound, I really do. It's very easy to get numb in life. It's very easy to tune out to some of these things. It seems like this is almost as if the first time this has happened to you when you're talking about it. So I appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate you sharing that. Recent floor sessions this past week, you and your colleagues passed more than 40 pieces of legislation. A number of those bills are about affordable health care throughout Wisconsin. Can we give some highlights of some of those? Well, I don't want to make you go through every single one, but keep you here too long. But
yeah, I mean, both the state assembly as well as the state senate were on the floors in the last couple of weeks and passed a number of pieces of legislation. And one of the pieces I really want to highlight, so just a little bit further to the west of here, over in the Chippewa Valley, where we saw some hospital closures that provided some major disruptions in healthcare delivery when HSHS and Prevea Health basically pulled the plug and just uprooted their operations. What's been really encouraging, an organization, Rogers Behavioral Health, has stepped in, and with some investments that we made in the state budget, they're going to come in and fill that void and that gap, because even though it's a little bit further to the west, it has had ripple effects in some of the systems that serve our area, whether it's Marshfield Clinic or Aspire. And so addressing some of those challenges it's taken a step in the right direction. And so there's still a lot more work to be done. In fact, the state senate's going to be on the floor next week or in the next couple of weeks. And we're looking to finish out the session strong. And before, those who are up for re-election get thrown back out to the wolves and have to go out and make the case, because as we know, here in Wisconsin, our politics never stop. Our elections never cease to end. But there's still a lot of work that needs to get accomplished before we wrap up. And rest assured, both houses, we've got our foot on the gas pedal.
It seems like, we used to joke that the NFL, it's off season, and now we know it has no off season. Politics is very similar to that, it has no off season anymore. It's certainly important to, it's part of the job, passing these bills, doing these things. It's great to be able to say that 40, some bills pass, some of these things. That's especially important when it comes to talking about healthcare and some of that's being able to spread out. And a lot of these things, of course, almost all of these things come from constituents, you people coming out mentioning these. You touched on that earlier, a reference of that. It's just another reminder to people out there. You're sitting there and you're thinking, well, who's going to care about this? Who would be, there's no bill that could be passed about this or something. Speak up, be heard. We want to know about those things.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's so critically important to reach out and have relationships with your elected officials at every level of government, whether talking to the federal, state, county, local, all the way down to your school board. Because there are oftentimes issues that arise that we might not know even exist. And making sure that, when issues pop up, not that would ever happen in state government, but when they do, that we're made aware of what's going on. And so, prime example, whether it was dealing with the Miller family and their tragic loss, or, just this past week we heard, I was able to testify on another piece of legislation that I authored that would create a medical cannabis program. And, we got to hear testimony from families all across the state who talked about the importance and the need for this. I shared, and it was very emotional for me to share my own personal story, my family story about this. And, I think oftentimes that sharing those experiences and those stories with people who might not necessarily been through the exact same circumstances is what helps move and shape public policy in the right direction.
There's a lot of us and a lot of needs, and the more of us speak up, the more that we have addressing those things, the more we can cover. And you and I have been doing this so long that that's how good we are, sir, because that's the next topic I wanted to bring up. Because you were part of that, testified in front of the Senate Health Committee on this bill that would legalize medical marijuana in Wisconsin. I genuinely think, and this is hard to say because if you ask the 5 biggest topics in Wisconsin, you're going to get 5 different things from everybody. But I generally think this is one of the bigger ones we need to address in this state right now, in part because it leads into so many other things, whether it's helping people dealing with these struggles that they're, from cancer, any of that that can help with that. But then there's our ag industry and what a benefit, what a jolt this could be to the ag industry. And if for anything else, among all these other things that are very, very important, we're so behind on this one. We've got a lot of other states that have already jumped into the game on this. And it's not to say, well, they're doing it, so we should do it. This is no different than, well, his parents let him do this. Why can't I? I don't mean it like that. But when we're talking about economies and we're talking about the other states around us have already have a jump on this one and are certainly making an income. And if another thing about this, you have people from Wisconsin going to these other states to purchase these products legally. It's something that we're behind on, and it's something that I immediately think of our ag industry. When it comes to this topic, I imagine this is a mixed bag behind the scenes with you and your colleagues.
Oh, it certainly is. But what I'm encouraged by, James, is the fact that 40 states have been able to figure this out in some form or fashion. And shocker, they're not just blue states, they're red states.
Yeah.
Most recently, in the state of Texas, one of the most conservative-run states in the entire nation was able to figure out and implement a medical cannabis program. Meanwhile, here in the state of Wisconsin, we have individuals who are making very personal decisions to go outside the law to get medicine that they can't currently get here in the state, or they want to find safer alternatives as opposed to being put on prescription opioids that have helped fuel a epidemic not just in the state but across the entire country. And so, what I'm encouraged by, so when I first introduced a version of this bill back in 2019, it was dead on arrival. In fact, the day it got released, I got a call from the former Senate Majority Leader, Scott Fitzgerald, at the time, and he said, that bill's dead. And I said, I get it. You're not there. A number of our colleagues aren't there. But it's important for me, as I've shared when I testified in committee, and I think as I've shared on the show and many other outlets, is that back in the late 90s, my grandfather was diagnosed with lung cancer and metastasized into bone cancer. And you were watching a guy who was a large man basically wither away to nothing because of the chemotherapy that he was on. It was gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking. So at that time, and this was 25 plus years ago, my family made the very difficult decision that they were going to go outside the law and purchase marijuana for him. It gave him his appetite back. It gave him time back. And that story is not unique to my family. We've heard this from countless families all across the state. In fact, shortly after we testified, there was a young girl, her name's Nora. She has a very rare genetic condition, Rett syndrome. And with the use of audio technology and computer technology, she testified, 17-year-old girl, talking about how her friends in other states can get medicine that gives them relief. And, we hear it from veterans. We hear it from other individuals who are dealing with conditions from, cancer, AIDS, you name it. So I don't understand why we wouldn't give patients choice and opportunity to allow them to make that decision between themselves and their provider to get the relief and alternatives as opposed to being put on opioid drugs, which have been FDA approved and have ravaged people's lives. They've destroyed families. And I just think it's time that Wisconsin joined the 40 other states that have been able to figure this out.
I come from a family of addiction. I do not take this topic lightly by any means. And when it comes to people being helped, that's where I fall on this one. I don't think that anything can necessarily be taken lightly, but it feels like so much of this comes from misunderstanding. And just a fear and not understanding necessarily what this is. The old movie Reefer Madness and some of that stuff and some of those things that really are attached to this topic. When anything can be bad and used too much of, or some of those things. all of the things that you've brought up there, along with the obvious economic impact that this can have, the way it can help our ag industry, and first and foremost, helping people in pain. I really appreciate what you shared there, and appreciate you on the pushing on this one and not letting this topic go and everything among your constituents.
Well, and I'm really,
or your colleagues, I should say.
I'm really encouraged too. So, going back in the Wayback Machine, just 7-8 years ago, we went from introducing a bill to it's dead on arrival. Fast forward to 2025, public perception, especially on folks on my side of the aisle, has changed dramatically to the point where there is much more of an openness and a willingness to at least entertain the conversation. The fact that this bill is actually heard, because the last time this bill was heard, or a version of this bill was heard, was back in 2022, and it was after the legislative session had ended. So we have an opportunity, and I think the state Senate is actually going to be in the driver's seat on this one to hopefully, I don't want to say put pressure, but hopefully persuade and, get the push that we need to get this through both houses. And like I told some of the advocates, or in the lead up to some of the advocates who I knew were going to testify in opposition to the bill, because I think it doesn't go far enough. We don't have a medical cannabis program here in the state of Wisconsin right now. So isn't something better than nothing? And this is a step in the right direction. And the fact that you've got Republicans who are actually willing to entertain in the conversation, that is a far cry from where we were just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking with Senator Patrick Testin right now, and you and Representative Krug recently were kind of clearing the air on the community solar project. I wanted to give you a chance to touch on that if you wanted to.
Yeah, so obviously the Central Sands and Central Wisconsin have become sort of ground zero for these mega solar projects and developments, which they have every right to go through this process through the Public Service Commission. For the longest time, I've sort of been like Switzerland, because for me, it's been a balancing act, because you've got a lot of these farmers who are getting towards retirement age that are looking for an income generator for themselves, because they don't have the next generation and take up the family farm, take up that torch. And so, they have every opportunity to sign up with these contracts and leases to, lease out some of their land for these solar developments. But at the same time, we are losing out on tens of thousands of acres of high-valued agricultural land right here in the Central Sands. So I teamed up with Representative Scott Krug for the Community Solar Program, which provides smaller developments and, more importantly, provides local control, which currently there is zero local control when it comes to these massive mega solar projects. Obviously for the folks downtown of Rome with that development, we've had a number of constituents reach out in opposition to that. There is literally nothing I can do about it, James. It's all run through the Public Service Commission. But this off-ramp that we've provided with the Community Solar Program, which has been wildly successful in places like Minnesota and other states, provides that local input, provides local feedback, and more importantly, provides a better alternative. Now, the large utilities, they hate this legislation. They absolutely hate it. They are foaming at the mouth that this is bad public policy. It's not bad public policy. They hate it because it takes away their current monopoly. And at a time when we have seen our utility rates skyrocket, we are the highest in the Midwest, we should be having a all-of-the-above approach. If they want to go for the large-scale utility, let them go for the large-scale utility. For those smaller developers, we've got construction companies here in the state of Wisconsin that can't do business in the state of Wisconsin. There's a company up in Ashland where they're sending their guys all the way down to Illinois to work on these projects because they can't currently do it here because the large utilities have an iron grip and a fist on these projects.
I appreciate your passion on this one, especially because it's fighting for the something that I think is so important no matter what we're talking about, and options. And it's such a big part of so many other factors what we're getting into. And I have no doubt that this is a topic we'll be talking about again coming up. Something else that I think we'll be talking about quite a bit, and I wanted to make sure to get to before we wrap up today and everything, is our agricultural roads and improving those. This program, this Agricultural Roads Improvement Program, our ARP, ARIP. The ARIP RIP application period I wanted to let everybody know about is a thing, and that is going on until December 15th. You can submit if you know a road that you think needs to be worked on a little bit more or something along those lines. Am I giving a little bit of a Cliff Notes version of this, sir? Am I hitting it right?
Yeah, so this is a program that was first created in the last state budget where we set aside, I think it was over $100 million for the ARIP, or
That's what I see.
$150 million last budget. To help with our heavy ag used roads, basically what I call our farm and market roads. Mm-hmm. So over the last several budgets, we have made significant investments in our mega projects, our state highway system, but the most frequent complaint that we have heard from our rural communities is that that's great, but when do we get our share? And so through the work of Representative Tranel and Senator Howard Markland, the co-chair of the Joint Finance Committee, we created this new program last budget. It was so popular, James, of the $150 million in grants that we set aside in the Joint Finance Committee and got approved in the budget. We saw over $500 million in grants come in for request. So during this budget, again, just hearing the feedback from how widely utilized or overutilized this program was, we re-enumerated another $150 million. And I suspect, if history is any prior indication, my guess is we'll probably see more than $500 million in grants coming forward. So that just goes to show what a huge need it is out there. And we want to beef up these roads because many of these roads were built over 100 years ago. And if you take a look at farm equipment from 100 years ago to today, you're going to notice something looks a little different. Mm-hmm. Ag equipment today is much more heavier just because the economy scale needed to be profitable. So at the same time, you've got this equipment that is going down roads that were designed over 100 years ago that can't handle the equipment. So we want to beef up these roads and provide communities the opportunity to apply for these grant dollars with a 90-10 split, 90% coming from the state, 10% from the local unit of government that gets awarded this application. And so for any of our communities, and in that first $150 million, I think my district either was number 1 or number 2 in the number of grants that got approved. We want to continue that trend moving forward. And so if there's any local officials out there, you've got a heavy ag use road, you need a letter of support, reach out to my office, and we're happy to lend a helping hand to get that money out the door, and more importantly, hopefully get some of it right here in the 24th Senate District.
I think of this as one of the more relatable topics we've talked about. Whether you are in the ag industry or not, you've experienced these roads, you've been down them before and everything. But I didn't realize how stretched this is among the state up and down. This past weekend, I thought I knew Madison like the back of my hand. There are so many parts of Madison I had no idea, and especially the surrounding areas. I'd never been to Argyle before. My sister has a place over there right now. She's got a couple cows, really likes it. It is a nightmare getting there. Those roads, I thought I was going down that specific road in San Francisco or something like that at certain points and everything. And then you have the other big farm equipment coming the other side of the way. It's just not enough room. The roads are built. The paths are fine. They just need to work on them. And I also think that when it comes to the benefits of this one, there's no downside to this one. Again, even if you're not in the ag industry, you might be taking these roads yourself. A lot of us like to take back roads, especially this time of year, seeing the trees and everything. So it's a real win-win kind of topic right there. I appreciate that, sir. As we're wrapping up, I know you are currently already on the job. You're hanging out with us here at the studios, and really do appreciate the time as always. Do you have something in the future coming up for the series?
I'm not sure what we've got on the schedule yet for November, but I'm sure my staff is working something, got something in the works right now. But, if there's any employer out there that is looking to have me come in and do my on-the-job series where I get hands-on, this one, I suspect my hands are going to get too dirty today. Yeah. But, there's no job I won't do, and it's just a great opportunity to highlight your business. We put production behind this now, make a short video, do a quick interview. Last month I was at Lycon Concrete here in Wisconsin Rapids, which was a ton of fun. I got to be on job sites. So if anyone wants to take me up on that offer, put me to work for a day, get me out of Madison so I can do a real job, reach out to my office. Our office number is 608-266-3123. Shoot us an email at sen.mylastname Testin legis.wi.gov. Follow us on social media. And of course, as always, as we're in the middle of fall session, looking towards the tail end and wrap up of the legislative session, as bills come up, lend your comments, your concerns, input, and if you see me out and about in the community, never hesitate to stop me, pull me aside, and have a chat with me.
Always good talking with you, sir. Thank you so much for the time. Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll try not to work you too hard.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another edition of WFHR's Rapids Report.